Hey guys, my name's Esteban. Anyway, this is going to be an intro to the tutorial video that I'm posting up right now. It is probably about 50 minutes long, so it's going to be in a few parts. But like anything, like I've probably recorded it like 3 times. This is going to be like the final time because I finally found a way to do it properly. Um, but I wanted to let you know that there is an issue with the way I recorded it. I didn't know my setup that my camera where it was going to place the stream of my camera showing me is on the bottom left corner here, and so it kind of gets in the way of the actual some of the Kismet stuff. But I do kind of say what it is that I'm doing in those sections, so I hope that that helps. I may re-record it again, but I just wanted to give you the heads up. That way, you kind of know what to look for. But again, like I said, I do kind of say what it is that I'm doing at the time. So anyway, I hope that this tutorial is helpful for you guys, and I hope to be doing more of these in the future. So thanks, and enjoy. So this is this is technically my first tutorial uh, that I did. I've done this tutorial like 3 times, and this is hopefully the last time I'll do it because it's going to be the one I post. So what this is going to showcase is we're in UDK, and I'm going to teach you how to do a third-person camera that is you're going to be able to adjust it. You're going to be able to have an aim down the sights mechanic, kind of a zoom in, third person kind of over the shoulder type of deal. And we're going to go into the AnimTree editor and edit the AnimTree so that we're going to, when we change the attributes of the third person aim, we're going to change stuff like the speed, and we're going to adjust the animations accordingly so that it moves right. So that's a lot that we're going to go over. This is going to be, I'm assuming it's going to be like a 3-part series because I don't have partner account on YouTube or anything, so I don't think they're gonna allow me to post a half-hour video or whatever that this might end up being. So anyway, we'll get into that. Either way, let's get started. So this isn't going to cover a whole lot of basic stuff. This is going to assume that you know a little bit about UDK. This is the latest build of UDK, I believe. This build, what build is this? It's a build. I believe it is the latest build of UDK. So there's going to be a lot of things in there. So if you don't have the latest build, I recommend you get it if you're just using this to learn and get started. So first thing we have, if you haven't yet, go into your world properties under view, open that up. Under game type, when you press that and bring down the drop menu, default game type and game type in PIE, play and editor, those all need to be changed to UT game. It's lowercase. And then once you do that, you can save the scene as something. When you open up you can open up a generic template. This is just a random level I made using the template blocks that are provided, which is just those 2 white blocks, the one you're standing on and the one that's stacked. I just went ahead and made a little play space out of those. You don't have to do that. You can just use the default scene or create your own using an empty socket. Just as long as you have some place to walk and you can see with a default light. Doesn't matter. And then with that, every scene starts out with a player start. Make sure you know where that is. Make sure that it's you know which way that the arrow is facing, which way you know that the player is going to be facing when you spawn them in. That way, it's important for the camera. And so the first thing that we're going to do here, when you play, by default, sorry about my chair, it's kind of squeaky, but by default, you're in first person in UT game. And so what people usually like to do, what you can do, there is a console command. If you press tab, and you can also press tilde, which is the key that's usually above the tab. It's got the little accent mark with the little apostrophe above it or below it. Either way, so if you press tab and you type in behind view, that automatically kicks you into a default third-person view that they have provided here. You can call this in Unreal Script, and you can also call this in a command line in Kismet, which I'll show you right now. It's actually quite easy. So what people usually do, this isn't what we're going to do here, but I'll just show you by example. You'll need something like player spawned or level loaded. I like to use level loaded just because it waits for the world to get there before it does anything. And then you'll go, I'm getting this menu by right clicking. You probably should know that already. And then you go to new action. And then you'll go under MISC, M-I-S-C for miscellaneous. That drop down menu will come out, and the one you want is console command. This allows you to enter a console command, and then it will be ran as soon as one of these is fulfilled. So right now I'm just going to connect beginning of level. And with this console command highlighted, what people usually do, here it has the space. So this is the place where it holds the commands. This is an array. You can add new ones. It already has one added here, which is 0. It starts from 0. If you click on this empty space, this is where you're going to type your command. So you got to type it the way that the command is. So it's behind view. So it's all together, and the B and the V are capitalized. So got to give it a target. In this case, the target is you, the player, which is actually represented as a variable. So when you right click, you go to new variable, and you go to player, and that'll bring you that in. With this, you see how it says all players? I don't like to leave it that way because there's only one player here. So with that highlighted in the all players properties, it has a little check mark that says all players. I like to uncheck that. Just as player 0, which is you. Just some housekeeping there. You don't have to do that. But I'm going to connect that to there because that's what you're going to output it as. So now with that said, if you do that, if you play a game now, boom, you'll get that default instant third-person view and everything, which, you know, it's decent. You can definitely do a lot of stuff with this. But what we're going to edit here, we're going to, I'm going to make a custom one that you can kind of edit. Now this is for prototyping purposes. I wouldn't base a whole, well, I guess you could base a whole game around using just this Kismet stuff if you wanted. I usually would go for Unreal Script, but however you want to do it. But I'll talk about the reasons why this was impractical for me. So what we'll do here, just exit out of that. We'll get into AnimTrees in a bit. We're going to go into your content browser, which is this little black icon here if you didn't see me click it earlier. And this, on these top tabs here, the one up here that says Actor Classes, under Common, Camera Actor. This you can just click and drag, or if you have it highlighted, you can also right click anywhere in the scene, and then go down here and it says Add Camera Actor here, and it will add it. So either way, now that we have that in here, this is the camera that we are going to use to see through. Spacebar is, of course, to change this widget. We're going to rotate it so that it's kind of facing the general direction that our player starts facing it. Now, we have this in the scene more or less where we want it. What we need to know, what we need to do is we need to attach it to the player. So we're going to just kind of generically do that now. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this console command here, just the console command. And we have the player variable. We need the camera represented as a variable. So make sure that the camera is selected in your scene when you do this. Go back into Kismet, and with that camera actor selected, you're going to right click. And in this menu, this right here is the menu options for whatever object you have in your scene selected. You can do things specific like when it's touched, when it's destroyed, when it takes damage, when it hits a wall, when it does specific things with animations or, you know, mobile input stuff that you can do. We're not going to use any of this. We're actually just going to use the one above it without the arrow. This is just a straight variable. This is just so we can connect the nodes and let the nodes know what we're referencing. So now that we have these two in here, what we need is we need a node that tells the game to attach the camera to the player so that it follows it. So we're going to right click, new action, actor, and we're going to attach to actor. This is where a lot of tutorials will use this technique, and it's a good technique, but there's a few things that there's one specific thing that they'll get cut off on, which we will cover. But for right now, just attach your player to the target, and the attachment is going to be the camera. So right now the camera is attached to the player. However, we're not seeing it through the eyes of the camera. We're still seeing it through the player's eyes, but right now that camera is attached behind us. So whether we can see it or not, we can't really see it in the editor because it's not being displayed. It is behind us, and we can see through it. Or we can't see through it yet, but it is behind us. So what we need is we need to specify a camera action. So we're going to right click, go to new action, go into camera, and we're going to set camera target. So this, got a little caught up there. We're going to connect this to the end of this node. What this node is saying is that it's asking us, what are we looking at, the target? We're actually looking at the player, for one. So we need to make sure that we're looking at the player. And what is the camera target? What is the actual camera that we're looking through? This camera. So this is saying that our target is the player and we're looking through this camera. So now when I play, we are going to see ourselves. And this probably isn't where I want the camera to actually be. It's kind of a decent distance, but the first thing that you will notice if you've done this before, you can't aim up or down. And that's a problem we are going to address, because there is a way to do that. But before we get into that, I'm going to get into how that works. Is the way that I'm going to exit out of Kismet real quick. I'm going to go into content browser. The way that pawns are set up, it's referencing to give control to your pawn. It's referencing a skeletal mesh, and you can go into your content browser, go into these tabs, and there's one that specifically says skeletal meshes. You can go down. This shows every mesh that is equipped with what we call a bone set, and that's just the logic of how your character moves. Now, in this case, we're using Liam, which is the actual robot. Liam. The way you'll notice if you double click on any skeletal mesh, it's going to bring up this anim set editor. That this right now this isn't the actual editor. This is just for preview purposes. You to edit an anim set, you would have to actually go into the anim set to edit it. But we're not doing that. We're just solely here because we want to look over here at the skeleton tree. This shows the bones that that make up your character, and these bones are set up usually using an art program like 3ds Max, Maya, or Blender. And this is just shows the logic of how this character moves. Like, what are the controllers that make this move? So when you're aiming your gun, what's really happening is that you're in the script. There's this in Unreal Script, or in the engine. There's a code that calls whatever logic that controls character's hands. It's rotating it up and down, and they have that in the AnimTree. So we're not going to get in the AnimTree just yet because the logic's already set up for that. We don't have to worry about that, but we do have to make it so that the camera follows that movement. The best node that I found is BIK gun, and IK is called inverse kinematic. It's an animation thing. It's for when you rig. I'm going to get more in depth into that in a later tutorial. But just know that this is like a node that's connected to the skeleton that controls where the gun is pointing. So that, I think, is the best bone to follow. Following any other bone is going to result in the camera looking in the direction that that bone is facing. So if you do the leg, it's going to be looking down at the leg, and you don't want that. You want wherever the gun or wherever the player is pointing at in general. So this BIK gun, with that highlighted, you're going to right click on it. In this menu, you can copy bone name selection to clipboard. You're just copying that name. If you don't have to worry about the 2 or the parentheses, but B_IK_gun, as long as you remember like exactly how that's spelled, if you can write it down like that, great. I prefer to copy it to my clipboard. We're gonna exit out of all that. We're gonna go back into Kismet. You see this attached to actor? You'll notice in properties, if you've ever looked at it, it does have a few options you can edit, or you can kind of play with. One of them specifically is references a bone name. So not only are we attaching it to the player, we're attaching it to a specific bone on the pawn of the player. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to do Control V, Enter. Whoops, I also pressed a period at the end of that. Now it's in that. Now it knows what bone we're referencing, which is good. So now when I turn this on, when I play this, now we have a full range of motion with the actual camera. It is following where we're looking. So from here, if you don't like where the camera is pointing to, you can go ahead and adjust it. Like so. And I like to kind of adjust it using the finer tuned snap settings, which can be found down here. And you can adjust that yourself here, or you can use the left and right brackets and those adjust them on the fly, like that. But I like to adjust that and kind of keep going, and then just adjust it to a point where you are comfortable with it. I like this actually. This is nice. That's adjusted. So now that we've got that, it's basic stuff for the camera. Now, one quick thing to be worried about, and again, I said this is probably best to prototype until you get like a really hard, like good Unreal script camera class or something to use, because what's really hard to control is, say you go into the game and you're jiggling your mouse all like really crazy. Wherever before the camera gets docked, it is going to be taking in the input, and wherever you were looking, your camera is going to get docked in that general direction, and it's going to look odd, like this. Just something to be wary about. There's a few things you might be able to do to mitigate this, such as going into cinematic mode and disabling or toggling input. I don't know if that is 100% of a fix. I'll look into it more, but just something to be wary about and something to look into when you're doing this. So just make sure, when you're not inputting anything, you're not moving, it'll look fine. Anyway. Now that that's done, what I also wanted to do was do the aiming. So when games like Mass Effect or Gears, you might be tempted to make a matinee and then push the camera forward or something like that. Games like with third person aim like that, like Mass Effect or Gears, what they tend to actually do is, instead of pushing the camera physically forward, they change the field of view, the FOV. And that's basically just changing the way that the camera lens is. And I'll show you what that is in just a moment here. But what we need is a element from the camera. So with the camera selected, you can right click, and on the top it says Camera Actor Properties, or you can press F4. Top option here, it says Camera Actor. It's got a bunch of stuff. The one we're looking at is FOV Angle. And you'll see it's at 90. Now you can write this down, because that's normal. That's your average field of view angle. You can write it if you don't change it in here. You don't need to. But you know the way that this works is the higher the number in here, the further away and more warped something is going to look. I think it's a concave. Uh, or the lower the number, the more the closer something is going to look, or the more convex the lens might get. So the you don't want to change it in here, but that's what we're going to change is the FOV angle. So this, remember that FOV is all caps, and then the A in angle is all capped as well, or is capitalized, and the rest of it's fine. So that's how we're going to have to reference it. But we're going to go back into Kismet, and another thing we're going to have to do is give it an input. So in this case, what I'm going to be doing is sacrificing the alt fire input in order to aim. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click, go into new event, and go down here and it says input. We're going to do key button pressed. With that, I'm going to go ahead and bring that out here. This just represents a button. You can assign any type of button. Now there's a few kind of things in here that you'll have to reference. Where you can find the reference for this is if you go into your UDK folder and you go into UDK game, and then you go into, I believe it's config, and then here all these files here that have like blue cogwheels and they're like notepad file type of things. It's called INI files. These kind of store in basic logic for how interaction stuff happens, and what game types are being able to be edited through default engine stuff. Here we go to default input, just default input straight up, and you can open this with Notepad. Don't edit anything in here that you don't know what you're editing. But this has a list of all of your bindings or your inputs that are referencing a function in code in Unreal Script. So as you can see, there's like escape, left control, spacebar. You can bind one of these to this, but what's best right now, if you go down here, there are a set of bindings called GBA, and you'll see move forward and backward. GBA doesn't stand for Game Boy Advance. It stands for Game Bindable Action. These are specific functions that are referenced that are toggleable, specifically for UT Game. So this is what you want to reference, and the one we want is GBA Alt Fire. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. I'm going to Control C to copy. All you got to do is just write it this exact same way. Alt, the A in Alt is capped, F and Fire is capped, and GBA is capped. As long as you just, with the underscore, as long as you type it all the way through, it'll know what to reference. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that folder. And now with this node selected, we can go into its properties and add this. Now you see input names. This is where we would add an input item. So this green plus sign here, you press that, it adds a new space where we can type in a new input. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that none. Then I'm going to go ahead and Control V for pasting, enter. And that's where it has now what we're referencing. So what this is saying is whenever you do this GBA Alt Fire, it actually is going to do whatever action we pass through here. So what we want to do is modify that FOV angle. So we're going to go ahead and right click, new action, object property down here, and we're going to modify a property. And what I'm going to do in here in the properties here, this is where we tell it what properties we're modifying. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. There's a space for a new property we're going to modify. I'm going to press this down arrow here. And right here where it says property name, this is the property that I was just showing you in that camera, the FOV angle. So remember to type it in the same way you saw it in that property list. The FOV is all capitalized, the A in angle is capitalized, and the rest is fine. The next part down is, should this property be modified? You want to put a check in that because yes, we are modifying it. and then here's where we would type in what we're modifying it to, what number. So I'm going to go ahead and put 60. Remember, the lower the number, the closer it's going to be. So when I'm going to say when pressed, we're going to modify that FOV to 60, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy paste this modified property down here on released. But this one on the bottom, I'm going to change this back to 90. You don't have to put decimal places. You can just put 60, 90. I like to put decimal places just to be sure, but you don't necessarily have to. So what this is saying is, when we press that old fire, we're going to go ahead and change that property to 60. However, when we release it, we're going to press it to 90. Now, repeated means like a tapping motion, or like kind of a specific type of hold. However, it's different from pressed. However, we are going to use pressed kind of like a hold, but more on that later. So just right now, just make sure pressed is the modified to 60, and then the released is we're changing it back to 90. So we're going to change this instigator. We're going to tell that the player's doing it. This looks a little messy right now. I will show you how to fix this up before we're done. So, but what we'll do now, now that this is set up, we can go ahead and go in here. You can see we've got our camera still set up. Now if you press Alt Fire, you'll see that it does zoom in a bit, and we get that nice kind of zoom, and then when we release, it goes back to what it was. So it is toggling, so that's good. So what I like to do is just kind of give this, I'm going to give this a little oomph. We're going to give this a little bit more of an emphasis, just to make it so that we are zooming. It gives it a little more of an emphasis when we have the zoom. So I'm going to go ahead and just undo these connections, and what we're going to put in front of all these is a toggle. So we're going to right click, go into new action, go down here to where it says toggle. We're going to toggle the HUD. It's kind of a little bit of a cool effect here. This is not practical in any way. I don't know when you'd want to actually toggle a HUD for gameplay purposes through a game, but this is just to show you. So we're going to do beginning of level. We're going to hide this, and then we're going to connect that to attach to actor. Target is player, and what I'm going to do, if you hold down Alt, I copied that toggle HUD. If you hold down Alt and you press any node, it disconnects whatever it's connected to, or you can right click the node and break a specific link or all links, whichever you want. But I'm going to go ahead and copy this twice for here. Make sure these are all still plugged into the player, because you are hiding the player's HUD. And then for now, what I want is when we're pressing it, I want it to show the HUD. And we're going to plug that into modify. And then when we unpress it, I want it to hide again. When we release it, I want it to be hidden again. So now, on the start, we're going to hide the HUD. When we press it, we are going to show the HUD, and when we release it, we're going to hide it again. So the only time you should see the HUD is when Alt Fire is pressed. So let's go ahead and test this out. So as you can see, we don't have the HUD. We don't even have a crosshair or anything. And then when you press it, there you go. You see the HUD, crosshair, and you're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that. So what the last thing that I want to do, well, before we actually move on, what I want to do here, this is really messy. As you can see, that we have nodes kind of everywhere, and what I want to do is get rid of those nodes, and the way we can do that is reference a named variable. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, before I do that, we are going to need a named variable, but first we need the variable that is named. So I'm going to go ahead and move this player variable over here, and in with that selected, in its properties, you'll see that there's a few things you can kind of enter. So the one we want is sequence variable, the variable name. Where it says none, I'm actually going to name it, and I'm actually just going to name it player. And you'll see when you do that, you'll see that this turns red. Make sure that it's under variable name that you're changing and not object value. Sequence variable is where the name is at. Sequence variable object is where object value is. You don't want that. Now that we have it named, it has the name in red. I'm going to do the same thing for this camera, and the camera just has where you can put the name in. And I'm actually going to name this camera, and that now has it as well. So I'm just going to move this over. Now what we need is those name variables. So we're going to right click, go to new variable, named variable, and this, what we'll do, this is just searching for another variable that exists somewhere around here, calling it, and then just referencing it. So what we're going to do is in here it's expecting a type, and the type that it's expecting is, we're going to go down into sequence variable player, and then so because we can have more than one player variable, that's why it needs to know the specific name. So this one is just called player. When you do that, you'll see the check mark. Sometimes, if you have player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, or something like that, then you can get specific. But right now, we're just using player. It's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and Control C, Control V to copy this wherever there is a player variable connection. They're not connected yet, but I'm going to connect these in just a moment. I think that is, I need one down here. Okay, that's all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and undo all these that are leading to the player. And we just connect these all. And again, all these are just, they're just referencing this node over here, telling it that that's the thing you're referencing. So now we just do the same thing for the camera. We get a brand new variable, a named variable. For the camera though, it doesn't have a specific variable that represents a camera, but it is an object. So we're just going to name it object, and then we just call camera. And it automatically knows there is an object variable in there named camera, and that's the one we're referencing. So I'm just going to Control C, Control V for copy and paste. Once you actually copy it or Control C it once, you can just Control V and paste it however many times it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and now release everything that's referencing camera. And I'm just going to move this camera variable over here with the player. So now it looks a little more clean with that. And if we go and test it out, everything should still be working. Looks like everything is. If something's off, make sure that your variables are connected are connected and referencing the same thing that it would be referencing if it had the other variable plugged into. So now the last thing that I'm going to go over with you here is usually in third-person games or even first-person games with aiming mechanics, is that when you aim, usually you slow down a bit. In this case, you're not slowing down at all. You're moving the exact same speed, and we can change that. And we'll change that in via referencing the speed of the actual pawn, and referencing the animation controlling the run cycle, so we can make it kind of slow him down, make him look like make it a slowed down cycle, so it more mimics a walk. It's not going to be a walk because it still looks like he's taking strides, but it'll be a lot slower. So what we're going to do here, we're going to add some functionality here. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over here. And what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and modify, I need a new modify property. So again, that's a new action object property, modify property. I need 2 of those here. And we're going to be modifying a property to the player. Now, in this case, we're referencing a pawn, like something that the pawn has. So here, I'm just going to kind of show you. You can find this in your, if you go to your UDK folder, you don't have to do it now, I'll just show you right now. But if you go in development, SRC for source, these are all your game types. I have a few extra because I made a few different game types of my own. If you go to UT game, under classes, and in here is all the stuff that makes UT game what it is. And you go down here, it's all in alphabetical order. If you go to UT pawn, you open that up. You can open that up in Notepad. I have Context, which is a free compiler and editor. And you can use Visual Studio if you want to set that up. I think it's IntelliSense. It requires, I forget what the name is called. It's a specific infringe. That's what it's called. But you can definitely edit this in Visual Studio as well. But UT pawn, if you open that up and you go, there's a bunch of stuff at the top. If you go all the way down past all the functions and you find default properties, these are the properties that you can override and reference. And the one that we are going to be overriding, let me find it. It's right here. Is ground speed. Ground speed is just the speed you're going to when you're on the ground. You can see that now we know the speed that you're moving at is 440. 440 is your in Unreal units. That's how fast you're running by default. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna modify this so that when you're aiming, you're only going 220. You're cutting it by half. So we're gonna reference ground speed. I'm gonna go ahead and copy paste mine. Control C. If ground and speed are both capitalized and they're both all together, again, just as long as you know that, you can reference it. But I'm gonna go into modify property, and then this properties list. Remember, we're gonna go ahead and add a new layer to it. We're gonna press down on that layer, and then property name. Go ahead and paste ground speed. This, do we want to modify it? Yes, we do. What are we modifying it to? 220. And I'm going to go ahead and link this in between. Again, to unlink something, you hold down Alt, click the node, and it will unlink. And so this one, same thing. I'm going to go ahead and paste ground speed in there. Yes, modify. But I am going to change this back to 440 because remember that's our default speed. So and what I'm going to do here, this is a player thing, so I'm going to go ahead and copy 2 more player nodes, the 2 more nodes that are referencing player onto here. So now what should happen is running around, and then as soon as we press Alt Fire, we're slowing down. So you can see his run cycle is still animating at the same speed, but we are we are slower. Not significantly, I shouldn't say, but it's about half. Release it, it goes back to normal speed, and it's slow down. So now that's all good. It's functioning properly, and what we want now is for the animation to catch up with that. And so this is where we'll get into the AnimTree editing stuff. So we're done with Kismet. You can go ahead and exit out of that. Go into the content browser, and then I'm going to go ahead and press all up here. It'll say all 53 types, and then and here in search, there's no sub search for AnimTree. There's animation sets. That's not what we want. We want animation. We want AnimTree. So if we just type in anim, you see set and tree. I'm going to go ahead and highlight tree, enter. And AnimTrees are the pink ones, and you can see it says AnimTrees. Anim sets are the blue ones. So the one we want, which is the one that is referenced for the pawn, is ATCH human. So 96 nodes, 12 controls. This is the one we're going to modify. So we're going to go ahead and double click that. You might see it might look blank here. If you just kind of drag you'll eventually see this humongous tree of nodes. We're not going to be looking through a lot of this, but this basically what AnimTrees do is it uses the animations that are put into the engine and making logic out of them according to how the game runs. So basically, it's like what exactly is the player doing while they're running? What exactly is the player doing while they're swimming? What bones are referenced when the player's looking up? What does he look like when he's in a vehicle? Stuff like that. It gets really specific, detailed, which I'll go into in a different tutorial. But for now, what we want is we just want to reference the running directions. So what we're gonna do is if you follow this tree, and I have it highlighted here. If you follow this tree all the way to the upper right, it's like the second cluster of nodes in the upper right, and it'll say anim node blend directional. And it has forward, backward, left, right. This is what controls what the animations are doing while the player's running forward, backward, left, right, as you can see here. This is what we're going to kind of modify or add on to. Right now it's just these are just generically running at speed, one animation in one direction, and one speed. What we're going to tell it to do is watch out for a speed change, and depending on what the speed is, you're going to change what animation is being played. So I'll show you that. What we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and hold Alt. We're going to break all these nodes, but we're going to keep the animation nodes here. Do not delete these. You can get them back if you delete them. What you would do, you could right click, you go to new animation sequence, you go to anim node sequence here, and then here you would write in the name of the node sequence. To get the node sequence name, you'd have to go into the anim set. You'd have to look at animation sets and find the one that is referenced here. So I believe in this one, and I'm hoping in here it's anim. No, it's that's the one I made. It's K anim human base male. That's gonna open up that where we saw the bones earlier. I'm not going to open it here because I think there's some errors that happen if you open up an anim set and an anim tree at the same time. But if you do, if you open this up, you'll see a tab on the upper left, and it'll have all the lists of animations that this guy can use. Just make sure you write whichever one you want in here. This one's run forward rifle, run backward rifle, run LT, one RT, and they're both rifle run animations. Anyway, that's how you would do that. But for here, again, what we're going to do is check for speed. So we're going to go ahead and right click again. We're going to do new animation control or animation node, and we're going to do there's a few nodes here. What we want is the UT anim blend by speed. There's a UDK one. That's not the one we're going to use. We're going to use this UT anim blend by speed because we're going to keep it within the UT game type stuff. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to just make 4 of these bad boys. Like so. We're going to go ahead and adjust these here. I'm going to just move these down. We're going to make room. So now what we need is we need copies of each of these. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all these once. Push it to the top of each of them. Just kind of adjust it. So that there's 2 stacked. That should be good. And so the top of each of these is going to be the walking animation because the slow node is on top. So with the top one, the top copy of whichever one selected, we're going to go down here, and it's already playing and looping it just by example. But we're looking at the rate. And right now the normal speed is a rate of 1. So if we're going to half that, we're going to do 0.5. That's half speed. So we're gonna for the top node of each copy, we're gonna do 0.5 for each top node. So now that we have that, the top node, remember, is the slow one. So we're gonna plug all the top ones into slow, which leaves the bottom ones, which are just fast. It's one step I forgot. These nodes, you'll see this shows the speed it's going to be checking for. It's got a minimum and a max speed. Right now, the thresholds aren't that great. If we were to go with these thresholds, the player would be walking, because the minimum speed, all he's got to be going is 100 before he would start walking, and then he'd have to be going 1,000 if we wanted him to run, and he's not going to be. He's going 440 at fastest, so that's not going to be right. So minimum speed, we're going to do 220 because that's the minimum, and then the maximum we're going to do 440 because that's the maximum we're going. We want to do that for each of these blend by speed nodes. Whoops. Awesome. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to plug all these in their respective nodes in this blend bidirectional node. So now we're saying not only do we know which animations we're playing in these directions, but we're checking each direction. We're checking the speed for each direction. And then depending on how fast you're going, it's going to output a slow run or a fast run, as you can see here. So on these ones, whichever one you have, you can change whichever one's selected by this slider here, and then whichever one you have selected, you can say this is what he's going to look like when he's moving slow, this is what he's look like when he's moving fast. So you can just kind of adjust that and just kind of play with all of them and see. So it's not the best looking walk type of cycle, but you can choose another animation for your slow run if there's another one that you want to see. But that's kind of basically what you would look like. So now we're done with this. So we've just kind of modded that. In order, what I usually would do, I kind of highlight all those, I do new comment, and I say walk toggle. This is just for your reference. This is so that you know more or less that you added this, that this part is modded. Same with like if you just wanted the normal UT stuff back, you could leave this in here because the default running is 440, but if you didn't want this toggle at all, you would delete these, pretty much undo what you just did, and just leave the full ranged motion animations in these nodes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. When you exit out of this, there's one important step that we got to do. I'm going to go back into all. I'm going to search for AnimTree again. And this ATCH human AnimTree that we just edited, it's got a little star on it. That means that it needs to be saved. So go ahead and right click on it, bring up the menu, and see right here it says save. Go ahead and save it. That saves all the changes that you just did. It is very important that you do that before you play in game, or else none of your changes will go through. So with that, go ahead and you can exit out of that. And now when we play, everything should still be working. And now when we press Alt Fire, he's now slowed down and his walk cycle has gone accordingly. When we release it, he's back to running. Again, he's back to walking. And here, again, this is for prototyping purposes, so I mean, a lot of this stuff is, you can go ahead and edit it and see. What I would recommend is from here, just learning the variables in Unreal Script, which I'll go over in future tutorials on how to just kind of add all this and change this in Unreal Script. But um, yeah, this is pretty much what you should end up with. So I'll go ahead and answer as many questions as I possibly can in the comments with this. But I hope this tutorial was informative for you. I hope that you learned something. I hope that it was fun to do all this. So I think by next tutorial, I'm probably get back. I'll do something new next week. Probably animation based with that, because that's the other thing that I kind of get into here. So other than that, like I said, my name is Esteban, and I'm going to be doing these tutorials weekly, so hopefully weekly, depends. But if you have any other questions in the comments, feel free to ask. All right, thank you so much.